Bonjour à tous and welcome to this episode of À la Une, the series in which we use the news to learn French. And this time around, of course, we are talking about
coronavirus!
So, rather than watching a whole video or reading a whole article as we have done in the past, in this episode we're just going to read some headlines. And it occurred to me that for some of you, reading an entire article might actually be a little bit too much, especially if it's something as technical as
Coronavirus!
So there is really nothing wrong with just reading the headlines and learning things from those. You can learn an awful lot from these short snippets of text. So we're going to use this opportunity to do something a little bit more manageable. So let's start with the first headline, which is a relatively simple one. Coronavirus, quels sont les symptômes caractéristiques de la maladie? So as I'm sure you can imagine, symptômes caractéristiques means characteristic symptoms, and la maladie is the illness. So les symptômes caractéristiques de la maladie means characteristic symptoms of the illness. But what I really want to talk about here is the use of the word quel, because we would translate this sentence in English as what are the characteristic symptoms of the illness? But notice we're not using que, quoi, or qu'est-ce que, instead we're using quel, which we typically learn means which. And the reason that we're using quel here is because we're asking a question which has a limited set of responses. The only answer you can give to this question is something which is a symptom. You couldn't, for example, say monkeys. The same goes for a question like, what is your favorite color? The answer to that question can only be a color. And so, in French, we would say, quelle est ta couleur préférée? Likewise, if I want to know what day it is, I'll ask, quel jour est-il? Because your answer can only be a day of the week. So we move on to one from Belgium. Coronavirus en Belgique. À quand le pic de l'épidémie? So, as you can probably guess, l'épidémie means the epidemic. Le pic means the peak, would you believe? But the one thing I want to focus on here is à quand, which is actually quite difficult to translate into English. In English, you'd probably have to say something like, when will the peak of the epidemic be? Now, you could translate that directly into French and say something like, quand le pic de l'épidémie arrivera-t-il? When will the peak of the epidemic arrive? But French can be a little bit more efficient than that, and instead use à quand followed directly by the noun. So, for example, we could say, à quand la fin de l'épidémie? When will the end of the epidemic be? So rather than making a long, clunky sentence with a verb, instead you can just use this very simple sentence structure. Remember, à quand plus noun. Next, we have la pandémie de Covid-19 est la pire crise depuis 1945, estime l'ONU. So again, I'm sure you can guess that la pandémie is the pandemic. Et la pire crise, la pire, le pire, les pires is the worst. In this case, it's la pire because crise, meaning crisis, is feminine. Depuis 1945, since 1945, estime l'ONU. So this verb estimer is one that you'll see an awful lot, especially in newspapers. It is often used in the same way that in English we say. And then we have l'ONU, which is l'Organisation des Nations Unies, or the UN. And the wonderful thing about l'ONU is that it's also been turned into an adjective. So I have another headline here which says, Coronavirus, un plan onusien de réponse humanitaire de 2 milliards de dollars. So un plan onusien is a UN plan, right? Here, UN is an adjective describing the plan as one by the UN. And in French, rather than just saying l'ONU, you can use the adjective onusien, which I think is wonderful. Next, we have à Seattle, une étude valide la distanciation sociale pour lutter contre le Covid-19. So in Seattle, une étude, a study, valide, validates, la distanciation sociale. So, again, you can probably guess that distanciation sociale means social distancing, but my question to you is, would you have known that before you read it? Because if not, I encourage you to really learn this word. It's very, very easy when we're reading to look over things that we can guess. and think, oh yeah, I know what that means. But then if someone asks you later on, how do you say social distancing, you think, oh, I don't know. That means you only have a passive understanding of that word. So if this is a word that you think is useful to you, actually learn it. Don't just overlook it. We then have lutter contre, which is a very, very common expression in newspapers. It's also a classic essay phrase, and it means to fight or fight against. So in Seattle, a study validates social distancing for fighting COVID-19. Coronavirus, le nombre de cas dépasse les 300 000 en seulement 4 jours. This one might look very simple, but there's quite a lot going on. So, le nombre de cas, the number of cases, dépasse, dépasser means to go beyond, les 300 000. So you might wonder, why les 300 000? Well, there's not an easy explanation for this, but basically in these cases when we're talking about reaching or going beyond a certain number, we always use les. So if we were to use reach instead, atteindre, we would say le nombre de cas atteint les 300 000. This is just something that you will see an awful lot in this kind of circumstance. We then have en seulement 4 jours, in only 4 days. But this word in English is quite ambiguous. Does that mean within a period of 4 days, or does it mean in 4 days from now, in 4 days' time? French does not have this ambiguity. En means within a fixed period of time, regardless of when it started. Dans, on the other hand, means in 4 days' time. So starting from now, after 4 days, something will happen. So for example, j'ai fini mes devoirs en 2 heures means I finished my homework in 2 hours, meaning it took me 2 hours to finish my homework. But je vais finir mes devoirs dans 2 heures is I'm going to finish my homework in 2 hours, meaning that I'm going to wait 2 hours and then I will do my homework. Finally, we have des Nantais racontent leur vie en période de confinement. J'ai pété les plombs le premier jour. So des Nantais are people from Nantes. Raconte, raconter literally means to recount, but we usually translate it as tell. But it's tell in the sense of telling a story, telling a joke, telling a lie. So raconter une histoire, to tell a story, raconter une blague, to tell a joke, raconter un mensonge, to tell a lie. So des Nantais racontent leur vie, they're talking about, they're telling us about their lives. En période de confinement, in the confinement period. J'ai pété les plombs, and this is what I really want to focus on here. Péter les plombs is a really nice and really common expression, meaning to blow a fuse or to go crazy. So, j'ai pété les plombs le premier jour means I went crazy on the first day. Also notice there that we don't translate the word on. We don't say sur le premier jour, or dans le premier jour, or en le premier jour, none of that. We just say le premier jour. So there we have it. Reading headlines can be very, very useful, especially if you're interested in a topic but feel that it's a little bit too advanced for your level. If you have any questions, then please do let me know. Do not hesitate to ask. As always, please do look after yourselves during this difficult time. I'm doing my best to make extra content. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and all that jazz. I've got some very exciting things coming up. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, à bientôt.